Level 1, the recruit. You score in the top 2% on a test most people don't know exists. No one explains who sent it. A letter arrives 6 weeks later. An address in Northern Virginia. A date. No other instructions. You show up wearing your best suit. 20 other people sit in the same beige waiting room. None of you speak. You all pass the same test. You all have the same look. Young, quiet, good at patterns. The interview lasts 4 hours. 2 men, no names on their badges. They ask you nothing about your skills. They ask you about your loyalties, your relationships, your debts, your beliefs. They ask the same question 3 different ways and watch your face each time. A month later, a clearance investigator knocks on your childhood neighbor's door and asks if you ever seemed unstable. You don't find out about this until years later. You receive your offer. $67,400 a year, health benefits, a badge number, a parking pass, an address you are instructed not to give to friends. Your first day, they take your phone at the door. Every day after that, they take your phone at the door. You sit in a cubicle in a building with no windows. Whoa, the screens in front of you show data moving in real time. Thousands of signals, millions of messages, the whole world talking to itself, and you are the quiet room in the middle where everything is heard. You tell yourself this is service, this is protection. Somewhere out there, your access to these screens prevents something terrible from happening to people who will never know your name. You believe that completely for about 3 months. Level 2, the analyst. The work is not what you expected. Not code breaking, not dramatic intercepts, not chase sequences. It is reading, hours of reading, cross-referencing metadata, building pattern maps from raw signals traffic. You become fluent in a language most people cannot see. Not the content of messages, the shape of them, who calls who, how often, at what hour, what changes when the pattern breaks. You realize something important. Content is noise. Behavior is signal. A target doesn't have to say anything incriminating. He just has to call the same number at the same time every Tuesday, and then one Tuesday, stop. You start seeing the world this way. Not what people say, what their communications reveal about what they're doing when they're not saying anything. Your first real contribution is small. A pattern anomaly in cell tower pings from a mid-level courier network. You flag it in a report. 2 weeks later, a supervisor tells you it produced actionable intelligence. He doesn't tell you what action was taken. You don't ask. You are promoted to the second tier. Your clearance level goes up. The databases you can access go deeper. The data is no longer just metadata. Now it's content, actual messages, actual conversations, actual lives rendered in plain text on your screen. The first time you read a real conversation between 2 real people who have no idea you exist, something shifts. Not guilt, not excitement, something quieter. The sensation of standing behind a one-way mirror and knowing the person on the other side has no idea the glass isn't solid. You write your report, you close the file, you go home. You don't mention this to anyone. Level 3, the targeting officer. You stop reading passive data. Now you help decide whose data gets collected. Targeting is different from analysis. Analysis watches what's already there. Targeting selects who gets watched. The distinction sounds significant. In practice, the line blurs quickly. You review dossiers. You assess threats. You write justifications. 3 paragraphs explaining why a particular individual meets the threshold for collection. A supervisor reviews it, approves it. The collection begins. You never meet the targets. You never see their faces. You learn their names first, then their habits, then their fears. A man in Hamburg who calls his mother twice a week. A woman in Karachi who uses the same encrypted app every evening at 9 p.m. A network administrator in Singapore who routes traffic in ways that don't match his cover story. Most of them are exactly what the dossier suggests. A few are not. You file a dissent once. A target you assess as low risk, likely misidentified. Your supervisor reads it, nods, keeps the collection open. He explains the concept of collection for elimination. You don't need certainty to watch someone, you need certainty to stop. You write the next justification more carefully. Tighter language, less room for ambiguity, your approval rate climbs, your paycheck climbs with it. By the end of the year, you can write a targeting justification in under 12 minutes. You know exactly which phrases move fast through the review chain and which ones get flagged for additional oversight. You tell yourself you're being efficient. That's when the work stops feeling like service and starts feeling like craft. Level 4, the collection manager. Your access expands again. New databases, new collection streams. You are no longer reading from a feed. You are building the feed. You learn the full infrastructure. Submarine cables tapped at routing nodes, Tech company servers accessed under authorities most people in those companies don't know exist. Foreign telecommunications switches carrying domestic traffic as a byproduct of global routing. The scale is difficult to hold in your mind. Not millions of records, not billions. Something larger than either of those words suggests. You understand something now that no textbook explains. Privacy is not a locked door. It is a glass wall that most people believe is opaque because no one has told them otherwise. You tell yourself this knowledge is neutral. You are not the one who built the system. You are the one who maintains its accuracy and minimizes its waste. You become good at minimization, isolating foreign from domestic, flagging inadvertent collection, filing the right forms when collection touches protected categories. The forms take 12 minutes. The collection takes milliseconds. Twice in your career, you flag something that makes you uncomfortable. A domestic political organization, a journalist whose communications appeared in a foreign target's traffic. You file the reports. The reports disappear into a review process you have no visibility into. You receive no follow-up. You stop filing those particular flags, not because anyone tells you to, because after 2 reports with no response, the act of filing begins to feel like talking to yourself. Level 5, the operations planner. They move you out of analysis entirely, into a different building, different badge, different set of rules. You are now on the offensive side. Your job is not to read communications. Your job is to design the systems that allow others to read communications. Vulnerabilities identified, backdoors negotiated or implanted, access paths through systems that their owners believe are secure. You spend 3 months embedded with a team building a persistent implant for a foreign military communications network. The implant is elegant. It hides in firmware updates. It survives factory resets. It cannot be detected by any commercial tool currently available. You are proud of your work. That is the thing you remember most when you think about this period later. Not the target, not the justification, the pride. You are good at this. Technically gifted, strategically patient, good at seeing the full chain of access. Your name circulates in a way that clearance levels prevent from being discussed openly, but that everyone understands. Your salary crosses 6 figures, then crosses it again with the contractor premium that gets added when the agency needs to retain specific skill sets. You buy a house in a suburb no one names at work. You tell your parents you do cybersecurity for the government. That is true. That is also nothing close to the full truth. Your clearance is now so high that the number of people who could meaningfully understand your work at a briefing could fit in a medium-sized conference room. You feel important. You also feel for the first time that you are inside something that has no visible edge. Level 6, the Senior Intelligence Officer. You stop doing the work, you approve it. Your days are briefings, priorities, threat assessments that shape which targets get resources and which get deferred. You sit in rooms with people from other agencies, state, CIA, defense, military liaisons, congressional staff with appropriate clearances. Everyone in these rooms speaks in the same careful, precise language. Nothing said directly, everything implied accurately. You become skilled at reading the implication. A budget increase means collection is being expanded in that region. A personnel transfer means an operation failed quietly. An absence from a scheduled meeting means something happened overnight. You start to understand the shape of things no one will say explicitly, including the operations that exist outside the frameworks you once believed governed all of this. A compartment you are cleared into has no formal name, just a number. Inside it are collection programs that predated the legal authorities that now nominally govern them. They were running before the frameworks existed. When the frameworks were written, the programs were acknowledged in internal documents and then operated as if those documents didn't exist. You read this quietly over 2 days. You close the files. You go back to your briefings. You don't raise it. You tell yourself this is because raising it would accomplish nothing. You tell yourself this is wisdom. Maybe it is. You are no longer sure that wisdom and silence are different things at this level. Level 7, the insider. You know too much. That is the only way to describe it. Not too much information, too much architecture. You understand not just what is collected, but how the oversight systems are designed to function and where they actually function differently. You know which legal authorities are interpreted expansively enough that the interpretation would not survive public scrutiny. You know which collection programs have never appeared in any congressional briefing. You know which contractors have access to raw data feeds with less oversight than the government employees who nominally supervise them. This knowledge is not power, it is weight. You don't consider going public. The consequences are immediate and clear. Prosecution under statutes with no good faith defense, loss of pension, loss of clearance, loss of the network of relationships that constitutes your entire professional existence. More than that, you believe most of what you do still serves the purpose it was designed to serve. You are not a dissident. You are a person who has been inside something long enough to see its full shape, and the full shape is more complicated than the exterior view suggests. You do something smaller. You begin keeping a private record, encrypted, air-gapped, completely off any agency system. Not operational details, not classified information, just your own account of what you have witnessed. Dates, decisions, the moments when you chose silence over dissent. You tell yourself this is for your own clarity. You tell yourself you will know when to use it. You sit with that record for years without ever using it. Level 8, the problem. Two things happen in the same month. A journalist publishes a story that is accurate enough to confirm that someone is talking. The story describes programs you know, not your programs, adjacent to yours, but close enough that the investigation that follows will have a wide perimeter. 2 weeks later, a colleague you have known for 11 years is quietly moved to administrative status. No announcement. His parking pass stops working. His email stops routing. People stop saying his name in meetings. You are not told why. You begin a quiet accounting of your own exposure. Every program you touched, every document you signed, every briefing where you were in the room. You calculate, not for the first time, how much of what you know is defensible and how much is not. The answer is not reassuring. So you change your personal devices for the first time in years, not because anything specific has happened, because you understand now that waiting for something specific to happen is not how people at your level are managed. They are managed before anything specific happens. You have never been the threat. You have always been adjacent to people who might become threats. That adjacency is sufficient. You start eating lunch alone. You answer emails slower. You attend every meeting you are scheduled for and say slightly less in each one than you said the week before. This is not paranoia. This is reading an environment correctly. You learned how to do this in the same building where you are now being watched. Level 9, the calculation. Your record is complete. 14 years, 47 specific instances where you have documented a gap between what the oversight structure is designed to see and what it actually sees. You sit with it for 6 months. You identify a journalist, not the same one from the earlier story, someone with a specific history of handling sensitive national security material responsibly. Someone who has, in 3 previous instances, worked with sources to minimize operational harm while preserving public accountability. You make contact through a method you designed yourself. Clean, untraceable. It takes 2 months of indirect signaling before you are confident the contact is not a test. You do not give them operational details. You do not name targets. You do not describe collection methods in ways that would expose ongoing operations. You give them the architecture, the shape of the oversight gaps, the legal interpretations that exist only in documents no court has reviewed, the institutional decision to treat certain authorities as self-authorizing. You do this not because you are certain it is right. You do it because you have been certain of too many things that turned out to be more complicated than your certainty allowed for. The story does not publish immediately. It takes 8 months. By then, you have taken a position at a university research center that your clearance technically permits and that places you outside the building. You watch the story published from a coffee shop in a city with a university in it. Your phone does not ring for 11 days after. Then it rings constantly for 6 months. Then the calls become formal, then legal, then quiet again. You are never charged. The activities you described are reviewed by a special committee. 3 programs are modified. 1 is discontinued. The legal interpretations are rewritten slightly in ways that do not acknowledge the previous interpretations were wrong. No one thanks you. No one punishes you successfully. You exist in a permanent middle state that has no formal name. Level 10, the cleared. You are 41 years old. You still have your clearance. Nobody has revoked it, which you understand means you are considered more useful as someone who can be watched than as someone who has been visibly punished. You teach a graduate seminar on signals intelligence history. The students are 22 and believe that surveillance is something that happens to other people in other countries. You find this both completely wrong and completely understandable. You never use the record again. You keep it on a drive in a location that would survive a search of any address associated with your name. The world has largely moved on to the next story. The programs you describe still exist in modified form, under new legal language that was drafted by people who read the same documents you gave to the journalist and concluded that the problem was the language, not the architecture. Some mornings you feel this as failure. Some mornings you feel it as the only realistic outcome available. Most mornings you make coffee, check the news, teach your seminar, walk home. You don't check old channels. You don't log into systems you no longer have reason to access. You don't reach out to former colleagues who might wonder where you stand. You stand in a quiet apartment in a city whose name you don't give out professionally. Somewhere right now, a 23-year-old is sitting in a beige waiting room in Northern Virginia, wearing their best suit, about to pass a test most people don't know exists. They have no idea how much they're about to learn, or how long they'll spend deciding what to do with it. The cycle continues.